Hey guys, Sean Terry here, flip2freedom.com. So as you know, we wholesale houses nationally. And one of the issues that we have been solving is the fact when a seller has a tenant in the property, what do you do, right? We have this eviction moratorium. We've got tenants that are basically saying, we're not moving out. We don't have money to move out. We don't have any place to go during this whole COVID thing. So how do you solve the problem when you get a property under contract with a seller? The seller has a rogue tenant or a tenant that's just, not leaving. And you have a buyer that wants the property vacant. So interestingly enough, we got a property here in Phoenix. Now, again, we do them nationally, so I'm going to give you what we do nationally. And I'm also going to tell you a story about a deal we have going on right now. We're closing on Friday. So essentially we have a local deal. Tenant absolutely not moving out. Tenant and buyer did not communicate. They don't like each other. They talk bad about each other. The seller, my fault, the seller didn't want to have anything to do with the tenant, and the tenant didn't want to have anything to do with the seller. So we had to get in communication with the seller. So what we did, and this was last Saturday, I went down to the house last Saturday and we talked to the tenant. And first off, she was hostile. I'm not moving out. I don't have money. I don't know. I'm not. And she just, vented. And when you have a situation with a tenant, what we want to do is we want to build a relationship with that tenant. Whether they're hostile or not, whether they're talking to the seller or not, we want to make sure that we build a relationship with the tenant and try to figure out a solution that will get them out of the property. So initially, we talk to them and say, hey, listen, we're purchasing the property. We're going to renovate the property. So we need, obviously, we're going to have you move out. We can give you a 30-day notice and you can move out. So that was our initial attempt. Now, first off, I asked her how it was going. I got to know her. I built rapport with her, asked her about the seller. She vented for, 15, 20 minutes. It's 115 degrees out. I'm literally melting outside talking to her. She was melting, literally. Her makeup was melting. And we're sitting there talking to her, and she's telling me all about the seller and how this and that and the other, and how he screwed her over and all this stuff, right? And then we said, okay, you can move out in 30 days. Now, we don't want her to move out in 30 days. We want her to move out ASAP so we can close the deal. We have a buyer that's ready to go on the hook that can close it ASAP, but wants it vacant. So our motive and mission is to negotiate to get her out as soon as humanly possible. And obviously her motive and mission is to stay there as long as possible. And seller just wants to get out of the property and not pay anything extra. They just want her out and just get the deal done. So that's what we're working with. So we have to navigate that and try to get that deal done. So what happened was, went down, talked to her, she vented, and then we talked to her, well, you must really love this place. You must love the area. You want to stay here. And it came down to the point where she didn't want to pay for a move. She had the money to, but she didn't want to pay. She believed that she was owed money from the seller because she fixed the property and she did a bunch of things over the years that she believed that he owed her for, and she didn't believe that I should have to pay to move out of the house when I don't have to, and you're going to have to go through a legal battle and you're going to have to pay money to try to get her out. So that was her attitude. So I had to get over that attitude and figure it out. She said she wanted upwards to $7,000 to move out, which was obviously ridiculous. So through negotiating and talking to her and getting and finding out what the root of the issue is, she does not like the neighborhood. She wanted to be in another neighborhood that was down the street, a newer neighborhood, a nicer neighborhood. Her daughter was living there. She wasn't feeling well or sick or something at the time and wanted to move her out of that particular neighborhood. But she apparently didn't have the funds to get into this new house, or didn't want to use the funds that she had to get into the new house. So we got down to the bottom line, got to the core reason, and I negotiated with her from a little over $7,000 down to $3,500. So $3,500. And that's called a cash for keys. So we had her sign a cash for keys agreement that she would vacate the property when she vacates the premise, and she delivers keys and she gives us possession, then we would give her a cashier's check upon moving out of the property. Now, there's a couple things that have to happen before we're willing to give that money over. Number one, we have to get the buyer ready in earnest money, non-refundable earnest money, in hand before we're gonna hand over $3,500. That's number one. Number two, we have to have the seller sign all the paperwork, the deed, all the information, all the closing docs before we hand over the $3,500. And we obviously have to make sure title is clear before that happens, okay? And the next thing is, right, obviously we're gonna front her and hand that over before the contract is actually closed. But our goal, right, on Friday is to close it, have the walkthrough done, showing it's vacant, and have it close in fund on Friday. So literally we're out the $3,500 within a matter of hours. It's coming right back because we funded it, and we have protection with non-refundable earnest money. Okay, so that's what we have been basically playing a chess game to get everything all set up to close on this Friday, and working with the seller to get out. Now, gave her cash for keys, $3,500. Now the question is, where's the $3,500 coming from? Well, it's not coming out of our side. It's not coming out of our fee, right? It's coming from the seller. So what we did, called the seller and negotiated the $3,500 to come from his proceeds at closing, and we reduced the sales price by $3,500 so that could go to take and actually recoup that $3,500 is going to the seller. Now, interesting enough, he absolutely agreed. And the positioning when talking to the seller was, say, listen, you know what? She's dug in. She's not going to move out. You know, even in 30 days, you may say that she's moved out, but you're going to have to go get an attorney. You're going to have to go take her through the whole eviction process, this whole moratorium. Who knows what's going on? It could be the end of the year. So you're talking, you know, you're going to have to spend money on attorneys, go through that whole process. And if that moratorium holds in court, then you're talking to early next year before you can be able to sell your house, or we can get her $3,500 and we can get this closed quickly. What do you want to do? That was the positioning and negotiation with the buyer. He immediately reduced the price $3,500, and now it's going to the seller, going to the tenant. All taken care of and done, and we close it on Friday. I'll give you an update after we get it done, right? So the next one is, is nationally. What are we doing nationally? We're doing the same exact thing, but we're doing it over the phone, meaning we're building a relationship with a tenant. What if you have a rogue tenant that doesn't call you back? What if they don't care? What if they're not going to move? What if they won't move for cash for keys? Then your only solution, they won't do cash for keys, they won't build a report, they won't answer your phone, they won't do anything. Then your only solution at the time, well, there's a couple different solutions. Number one, you can go down the legal route, hire an attorney with the seller and be able to start the eviction process. It might go through or might not, depending. Number two is you really have to negotiate with the buyer to buy the property with that rogue tenant in place. Now remember, some buyers may say, I want it vacant. But there's a price for everything, meaning that buyer, if you give them the right price, they'll take over the problem. It might be $1,000 reduction, $2,000, $5,000, whatever the number. There is a number that's big enough that will get that buyer to say, okay, I'll buy it with a tenant and I'll deal with the problem, right? You got to find out what that number is. Once you find out what that number is, from the buyer's perspective, negotiating with the buyer, then you can go back to the seller and you can get the seller and the price reduction to pay for that buyer. And listen, there's always a number. A buyer There's always a number. There's always a number with a seller and what's it going to take to move out. And guess what? From a seller's perspective, from the seller's perspective, there's always a number. So hope that helps. That's what we're dealing with right now. I got so many deals in escrow right now. It's just crazy. We got so many deals that are sold to buyer right now that we're closing this week, all across the entire country. We actually just hired 2 more people, hired another lady last week who's going to be an awesome part of our team that's getting started. So we are blowing up. The market's on fire right now. The real estate default tsunami is coming, and we're going to be prepared for it. I hope you are. And this little challenge with tenants not wanting to move has been a thorn in our side, but we've found solutions to work through it, and I hope this helps. God bless.